Part 1. The Sepulchre Beneath the Flagstones. Joshua entered the limestone gates of Jerusalem as the oppressive heat of the high festival clung to the city like a humid shroud. The air was a suffocating tapestry of roasting lamb, unwashed wool, and the thick, iron scent of sacrificial blood drifting from the Temple Mount. He sought refuge at a sprawling caravanserai near the Damascus Gate, a place of jagged stone arches and massive cedar beams stained black by decades of oil smoke. As he crossed the threshold of the allotted chamber, a thick, nauseating stench of sweet rot assaulted his senses, clinging to the back of his throat like a physical weight. This was not the honest decay of a dead animal, it was the metallic, heavy aroma of a life stolen in secret. The Creator laments the internal putrefaction of this place. For the inn was built not on hospitality, but on the silent acquisition of the belongings of those who never checked out. The innkeeper was a man with skin the color of parched parchment and eyes that flickered with the frantic greed of a cornered jackal. He claimed the city was overflowing and that the smell was merely an old drain. Offering a small jar of expensive myrrh to mask the atmosphere, Joshua looked through the man. Seeing the blackened, hollow architecture of his soul, he declined the oil. Instead, Joshua sat upon the cold stone floor, the flickering flame of a single oil lamp casting long, distorted shadows that danced like vengeful spirits against the walls. He pressed his calloused builder's palm against the limestone floor and whispered into the silence, "Let the stones cry out what the tongue of the murderer has buried in the deep." As Joshua and his companions pried up the heavy wooden sleeping platform, they discovered that the earth beneath had been recently disturbed, the dust still damp with a fluid darker than water. Shoveling aside the loose soil, they uncovered the body of a young traveler from the northern provinces. His throat slit with such precision that his head was nearly severed. His pouch of silver and fine linen garments gone. Joshua did not recoil. He stood in the center of the room as the innkeeper trembled in the doorway. The Creator self-reproaches for a world where the sanctuary of a bed is transformed into the stillness of a tomb. Joshua's voice rose, not in a shout, but in a low vibration that made the clay jars in the room rattle. "You sleep upon the blood of your brother, believing the dust of Jerusalem will keep your secret, but the earth itself is vomiting your sin back into your face." As he spoke, a terrifyingly clear, divine light began to emanate from Joshua's presence, illuminating every hidden bloodstain on the walls that no lie or water could ever erase. The innkeeper fell to his knees, clawing at his ears as if hearing the screams of all those he had buried beneath the floorboards over the years. Joshua realized that in the heart of the holy city, the darkness did not hide in the shadows of the alleys. It owned the very inns where the weary sought their rest. He left the man to the justice of the local guards, but the weight of the discovery stayed with him, the realization that the civilization of men was often just a thin crust of stone over a pit of unwashed sin. Part 2. The Stalker at the Cistern of Joppa. Near the salt-sprayed coast of Joppa, Joshua rested by a communal limestone cistern as the moon rose like a pale silver coin over the Great Sea. A woman from their traveling group went to draw water, her footsteps soft on the sand. When she returned, she was hyperventilating, her skin as pale as the sea foam. She spoke of a man with eyes like a desert hyena who had emerged from the shadows of an ancient, gnarled olive grove. He had watched her with a predatory stillness that suggested he was not entirely human. When she tried to retreat, he had moved with a fluid, terrifying speed to block her path, his presence smelling of sulfur and the damp air of a cave. He only vanished when the voices of other water-bearers began to echo from the distant road. That night, inside their cramped, mud brick shelter, a heavy, rhythmic thumping shook the cedar door. A voice, harsh and authoritative, claimed to be a Roman decurion demanding entry to search for a stolen sacrificial animal. Joshua stood and opened the door, but he saw no Roman iron, no crimson cloak. Instead, he faced a man whose flesh looked as though it were melting off his frame, his eyes burning with a feverish, yellow light that spoke of 1,000 nights without sleep. He held a rusted iron meat hook, and his teeth had been filed into jagged points. The man lunged, not for Joshua, but for the woman cowering in the corner. Joshua did not call for fire. He caught the man's wrist with the crushing strength of a man who spent his life shaping rock. The struggle was a collision of spiritual planes. The intruder's strength was fueled by a legion of shadows, his bones creaking and popping under the pressure of Joshua's grip. The Creator, Bo'oah, in divine sorrow as he looked into the man's cloudy, duck-now eyes and saw how the spirit of the predator had hollowed him out until nothing but a raw animal hunger remained. Joshua looked into the abyss of the man's mind and saw the twisted memories of dozens of travelers he had dragged into the olive groves. "The lamb you seek is not here," Joshua commanded, his voice vibrating with the frequency of the stars. "But the shepherd is, and he knows your name." The intruder let out a sound that was a sickening blend of a human sob and a jackal's howl. He fled into the dark groves, leaving behind a trail of black, oily residue that hissed upon the ground. Joshua realized that even in the land of the prophets, the wolf does not always wear sheep's clothing. Sometimes it wears the mask of authority and the skin of a man to satisfy its thirst for the innocent. He sat by the fire for the remainder of the night, his hands glowing with a soft, protective amber light, shielding the group from the things that prowl the borders of the known world. Part 3. The Trap on the Bloody Way. Joshua led a small caravan down the steep, winding road from Jerusalem to Jericho, a path known to all as the Bloody Way. The road was a jagged scar through the wilderness, flanked by limestone cliffs that had hidden thieves since the time of the kings. At the hour when the shadows are longest and the air turns a cold, bruised purple, they found the road blocked by a massive, fallen cedar tree. Beside it, a cluster of figures in tattered black veils were wailing over a draped body, their cries echoing off the canyon walls in a haunting, dissonant chorus that made the donkeys bray in terror. Joshua signaled for the group to halt, his eyes narrowing as he sensed the contract of the profane being signed in the silence between the wails. As they approached to offer the mercy of a desert burial, the mourning women suddenly stood, shedding their veils to reveal sun-scorched bandits armed with curved daggers and heavy bronze-tipped clubs. From the jagged rocks above, others began to rain down stones, their laughter mingling with the cries of the trap. Joshua grabbed the lead animal's reins and shoved his group back toward a shallow cave, standing at the entrance as a human shield. A brutal, chaotic skirmish erupted in the dying light. Joshua used his heavy wooden staff to parry the blades, his movements a blur of divine precision that seemed to anticipate every strike before it was made. The Creator laments the idolatry of gold that turns brothers into vultures. Joshua looked at the bandit leader, a man whose face was a map of scars and ancient cruelty, and saw the internal rot that had consumed his entire lineage. These men were not just thieves, they had become integrated into the violence of the road, becoming a physical manifestation of the curse that haunted the pass. Joshua's presence suddenly intensified, his form becoming a pillar of blinding white fire in the center of the fray. The bandits shrieked, clawing at their eyes as the divine radiance scorched their vision. They fled into the caves, babbling about a God of light who stood amidst their steel and remained unbloodied. Joshua looked at the sand, now stained with the crimson price of human greed, and wept for the waste of life. He understood that the road to the city of palms was paved not with stone, but with the broken dreams of those who were simply trying to survive the journey. Part 4. The Sacrifice Beneath the Chariot Axle. In the Roman city of Caesarea, where marble temples to Augustus stood as monuments to human pride, Joshua saw a grand, gilded chariot overturned in a deep drainage ditch outside the city walls. A traveler from their group, a man of simple, impulsive kindness, rushed forward to help, believing the driver was pinned beneath the heavy wooden frame. As the man leaned down to provide leverage, Joshua's voice rang out like a trumpet blast. Frozen in the salt air, do not touch the wood of the oppressor, for it hides a hollow heart. Hidden in a secret, hollowed-out compartment beneath the chariot's floor were two men with faces blackened by soot and ash, clutching short, serrated swords used for forbidden ritual sacrifices. Between them lay the mangled remains of a young servant boy, his body used as a foundation sacrifice to bring luck to the chariot's owner in the upcoming races. The assassins crawled out from the wreckage like vipers, their teeth filed to sharp points, their skin smelling of the copper tang of fresh blood and the musk of an open tomb. The Creator laments The architecture of agony. The way the great empires of the world build their glory upon the hidden corpses of the weak and the forgotten. The assassins lunged at Joshua with a coordinated ferocity, but they found themselves unable to close the distance. An invisible, divine G-force seemed to emanate from Joshua, pinning them against the overturned chariot. Joshua looked at the remains of the boy and then at the assassins. His eyes were no longer amber, they were a cold, terrifying white. "You build your theaters and your temples on the blood of the fatherless," he said, his voice a low vibration that caused the gilded wood of the chariot to crack and splinter. "But the foundations are already rotting, and the earth will not hold your weight." He led his companions away as the sun set over the great sea, the sky turning the color of an open wound. He realized then that Roman civilization was merely a thin veneer over a pit of ancient, seething darkness that demanded constant blood to remain stable. Part 5. The Legion in the Stern. On a small fishing boat crossing the Sea of Galilee, the air turned unnaturally cold, and the water turned the color of black ink. Joshua felt a gaze that burned like smoldering coals from the back of the vessel. A man sat at the stern, his face a mask of pale, waxy flesh, his hair matted with salt and filth. He had watched Joshua without blinking for 7 hours, his body swaying with the rhythm of the waves in a way that suggested his bones had been replaced by something fluid and dark. Joshua retreated to the small, dark cabin to pray, feeling the frequency of the curse vibrating through the wooden hull. In the dead of the night, Joshua felt a cold, wet hand, smelling of the depths of the sea and ancient seaweed, brush against his cheek. He opened his eyes to see the man from the stern standing over him, holding a jagged piece of obsidian flint. The man's voice was no longer human, it was a discordant chorus of 1,000 drowned souls. A wet, gargling sound that whispered, "We know the secret of the Father. We know why you have come to the dust. Son of man, we will drown you before you can reach the tree." The boat rocked violently, as if a leviathan were thrashing beneath the keel, and the oil lamp flickered out, leaving them in a velvet darkness. The man lunged, his fingers elongated and claw-like, but Joshua simply stood and spoke one syllable, "Peace." The word did not just quiet the man, it silenced the entire sea. The wind died instantly, and the waves became as smooth as glass. The shadows that had inhabited the man's soul were torn out of his mouth in a black, oily mist that hissed as it vanished into the cold water. The man collapsed, his skin returning to a healthy hue, his eyes clearing for the first time in years. When the boat finally reached the white sands of the shore, the man woke as if from a long, terrible dream. Joshua stepped onto the land, his robes white as the dawn, ready to begin his ministry. He had finally tasted the full, bitter cup of the world's darkness, the murders, the predators, the lies, and the demons, and he was ready to break the ledger of sin forever. The journey of Joshua through the ancient shadows of the Levant is more than a mere collection of dark parables. It is a profound audit of the human condition. He walked the bloody way, not to marvel at the darkness, but to witness the true cost of our silence, our greed, and our apathy. He faced the reaper in the caravanserai and the legion in the boat to prove that even in the deepest pits of human depravity, the light of the Creator is an immovable pillar. These stories serve as a mirror. Are we the innkeeper burying our sins? Are we the crowd shunning the truth for the sake of tradition? Or are we the weary travelers seeking a flicker of divine protection in a world that feels increasingly cold? The shadows of the past have not vanished, they have only changed their shape. Today, the death towns may be hidden in digital corners or behind the closed doors of modern indifference. But the call to mercy remains the same. Do not wait for a miracle to happen. Be the light that prevents another soul from being lost to the hollows. Subscribe to our channel to join our growing congregation of seekers. Strike the notification bell so you never miss a descent into the unknown. Share this video with someone who needs to be reminded that even in the heart of horror, there is a witness. Leave a comment below. Which of Joshua's encounters shook you the most? Do you believe these ancient, silent scars still exist among us today? Your support allows us to keep digging into the dirt of the past to find the truth. Walk in the light, keep your heart guarded, and remember, the audit of the world has begun, but the audit of your soul is in your hands.